History will be made on Sunday as the Memphis Grizzlies will have two representatives in the NBA All-Star game. Ja Morant will start his second consecutive All-Star game, while Jaren Jackson Jr. will make his debut off the bench. Will they be playing together? Will they be playing against each other? Why there are reasons for optimism that both can be even better, and some All-Star game predictions on this Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax, flying solo once again, missing DeMichael Cole, but wishing him and his family the best during these tough times. We're finishing out the week here on Locked On Grizzlies, a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure you're making us a part of your NBA fan experience each and every single day. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Again, I am your host, Joe Mullinax, formerly of Grizzly Bear Blues. Now I write a little bit over at Fansided, over at SB Nation NBA, and I also have a Memphis Grizzlies specific Substack that I will talk briefly about here in a moment. My latest piece that came out today, reasons to be patient with the Memphis Grizzlies. But obviously my main claim to fame at this point in my Grizzlies coverage is Locked On Grizzlies, and I'm so thankful for you being with me again here on another episode. It is officially, for everyone, All-Star break time. There were games on Thursday, just a few. The NBA is now hitting a bit of a slumber for the next few days. The Memphis Grizzlies are back in action 6 days from today when they take on the Philadelphia 76ers on national TV. But first, the All-Star weekend, and then a little bit of a break for these guys heading into the home stretch of the season. And as I mentioned earlier, the Grizzlies are making history on Sunday. For the first time, two All-Stars representing the Memphis Grizzlies organization. I think it's important to reflect on that for a moment and just how significant that is for the Memphis Grizzlies, one of the smallest markets, if not the smallest market in the entire NBA, to have not one, but two All-Star players. Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. There were no injury replacements here. These guys were selected All-Stars before the injury replacements came in. Now, Ja Morant became a starter as a result of the injury replacement, but he was already on the roster. So these guys were chosen as two of the top 24 players in the National Basketball Association. Does that mean that Jaren Jackson Jr. is number 23 or 24 in the league? That might be a bit lofty, right? You have injuries that had guys stay out. You had players that if they had been in the mix the entire season, perhaps they would have put up better numbers or gotten more coaches' attention, whatever the case might be. So Jaren's probably not 24, but you know what Jaren is? He's an all-star. And that's all that matters. And before we get to Jaren, I want to talk about Ja Morant and what an amazing player he is, an amazing representative of the city of Memphis and the community there. Ja's not perfect, and I think Ja would be the first one to tell you that. Ja is particularly hard on himself as a player in particular, but Ja also has had some missteps this season in terms of public perception, the way that he has been covered by the media. A bit of a backlash for the first time for Ja Morant. And for the first time, there is a growing sentiment among among NBA fans that Ja Morant is a bit of a villain in the NBA. The Grizzlies becoming one of the league's most hated teams. I don't know if I fully believe that. This feels like one of those Twitter echo chamber moments. I promise you go into Philadelphia's Wells Fargo Center, I believe is what it's called. You go in there and you look around, you're going to see a lot of kids wearing Ja Morant 12 jerseys. So I think in the real world, Ja Morant doesn't have the rep that he does among NBA Twitter folks. But my biggest takeaway from what Ja Morant is for this Grizzlies team at this stage is he's one of the top 10 or so players in the NBA. He's a legitimate superstar, has his own shoe, numerous brands and deals and all those sorts of things. And it's just so amazing that in a market like Memphis, a player like this, a human highlight reel who can do just about anything with a basketball in his hands, he's going to be in with the Grizzlies for the better part of this decade. A 5-year contract extension kicks in next year. He's not going anywhere, folks. And he's extremely gifted, extremely talented, underrated ball handler, extremely gifted passer, but he can still be better. And that is one of the themes of this episode, things that can still be better. Ja Morant, as good as he is, can still grow. And that ties back into my Substack article for today, part of my Friday 3 feature that I do every week. Pumping the brakes a little bit and allowing these Grizzlies the right to be wrong or the right to fail, because they're going to get better. They are still young. As good as Ja Morant is, there is one particular area where he could improve, and that's in his own shooting. He is having the worst shooting season of his career. Per cleaning the glass and effective field goal percentage, he is a negative 0.9%. His team shoots worse when he is on the floor. Minus 0.9% for the first time in his career. In his sophomore season, they were shooting 3.4% better when Ja was on the floor. 2.3% better at the rim. This season, 1.6% worse. In fact, the Grizzlies across every category in team field goal percentage that Memphis has, across every single one, the Grizzlies are worse when Ja Morant is on the floor. Last season, that was only true of 4 categories. The season before that, it was true of no categories. What are some reasons for this? It's not all Ja's fault, of course. Why are there issues offensively for the team? Well, you can point to a variety of things. The struggles of Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks and Ja Morant play together a lot, and Dillon is having the worst shooting season of his career. But Ja Morant is shooting 2% worse in terms of effective field goal percentage than he did last year. 6% worse at the rim. He is shooting worse from 3, not by much, just by 1%, but still worse. So he is not performing at the level that you would like to see him offensively doing so as a shooter. As a distributor of the ball, you could argue this is the best season he's ever had. He has a 41.5% assist percentage. That's better than his rookie season, which was his previous career high of 35.3%. Again, all of these stats are courtesy of cleaning the glass. So Ja Morant, as a defensive player, he's never going to be elite, right? You hope that he can be a net neutral piece in that process. But offensively, that's the rub. And you want to see him continue to grow and get better in that area. He is putting up a second career worst, so not quite as bad as the 2020-2021 season. Points per shot attempt. He's middle of the pack in the NBA at 111.9 points per 100 shot attempts. And that's despite posting the highest usage rate of his career, 38.3%. What are some ways this can be fixed? Obviously, teammates can make shots in terms of the shooting percentages being down. But I just alluded to the assist percentage being way, way up. The only way you get an assist is off of a made bucket. So Ja is to do with some of this. And I think in terms of his usage, how that usage is cultivated coming in to the second half of the season, post All-Star break, is going to be really interesting to see. Allowing Desmond Bane, allowing Luke Kennard, allowing Tyus Jones at times to be that lead facilitator and let Ja be a shooting guard-esque type of player like a Kyrie Irving. Obviously, the major difference between Ja and Kyrie is Kyrie has a 3-point shot that's pretty consistent. Ja does not, but Ja's a better athlete. He can cut to the basket a little bit more. I think that they can find ways to get Ja in offensive, advantageous scoring positions. So he's not just playing in the pick and roll ISO all the time. It's predictable. Teams are able to collapse on him. And just adding Luke Kennard in the corner and saying that's one less body in the paint, it's not necessarily lazy, but the potential of this offense is greater than what is currently being displayed. So allowing for Ja Morant to be a scorer off the ball, I think that will help with these percentages. That'll help put him in a better place to be a scorer, the likes of which the league has not seen consistently. He is an all-star, a tremendous talent, and a physically gifted athlete. and he can still be better at this young age of 23. All-Star starter for the second time, two-time All-Star starter, 23 years old. The future's bright for the young man, and he has a ways to go to continue to get better. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Nissan. Nissan's most electric player of the week is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. My player of the week is going to be who we talk about in our next segment. It's going to be Jaren Jackson Jr. He is a remarkable talent. We talked about the 9 stocks on yesterday's episode of Locked On Grizzlies. He's explosive on both ends of the floor, brilliantly fierce game, especially on the defensive end, stunningly powerful finishes at the rim. It really is an impressive display how physically gifted and beautiful his game can be while also displaying real dominant strength. He's a lot like the Nissan Ariya. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin you to the seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV, electronic vehicle. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. We're going to talk about that Nissan Ariya player of the week, Jaren Jackson Jr., and his road to the All-Star game next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax, once again flying solo, missing DeMichael Cole, wishing he and his family the best. Continued thoughts and condolences going to him. The grind continues on Locked On Grizzlies. We talked about Ja Morant in the first segment, how he can still get better as a scorer of the basketball and how he is an NBA All-Star starter. Lots of reasons to be optimistic there. The same can be said of Jaren Jackson Jr. And Jaren Jackson Jr.'s road to the All-Star game is a different one from that of Ja Morant. The Grizzlies were, I believe, positioned to be 7th or 8th in the lottery in the 2019 NBA lottery. But it was the first lottery of the new rules, the new lottery odds. And the Grizzlies were able to jump up. They weren't able to win the lottery per se and get number 1 pick, and that would have been Zion Williamson. Even in the hindsight of history, it still would have been Zion. But number 2 is a solid consolation prize. Obviously, Ja Morant, to this point, has had a better career than Zion Williamson. We'll see how things play out. The year before that, though, when the rules were still the same, the Grizzlies earned that number 4 overall pick in Jaren Jackson Jr. because they were really bad. I was running Grizzly Bear Blues at the time, and that was a slog of a season. Dillon Brooks was their best consistent player as a rookie second-round pick. No wonder they were 22-60, right? Jaren Jackson Jr. comes out the next year. He is potential personified, but I was worried about that potential because I still saw the Grizzlies at the time as a team trying to compete and win, and I didn't think Jaren was going to help them do that. Peter Edmiston, former host of Locked On Grizzlies, pulls me aside and says, Joe, everything's going to be okay. This kid can play. He's going to be a star. Trust Peter, right? He's exactly right. Here we are. Ja Morant is a superstar. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a solid star. And I think as much as I love Desmond Bane, I got to give Jaren the nod as the second best player on the Grizzlies. Why? Because he is the best two-way player on the Memphis Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr. has an offensive game that is explosive. He can get to the rim off the dribble. He can create his own shots. He can find a way with his back to the basket in non-traditional ways. He's getting better at screening, still not dominant at that by any stretch of the imagination, but he's improving as a screener. He is using his body better. He is rebounding at a surprisingly good rate, as good, if not better, than he has ever rebounded in the NBA. And, of course, his defensive impact. The 9 stocks against the Utah Jazz. 9 total blocks and steals. That is phenomenal. To be able to do that, to dominate a game in that fashion. And it's not just in terms of his blocks. It's in terms of how he negatively impacts opposing teams scoring the basketball. When Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the floor, opposing teams shoot 5.5% worse. 5.5% worse in terms of effective field goal percentage. At the rim, they shoot 10.7% worse per cleaning the glass. 10.7%. That is one of the best marks in the NBA. One of the absolute best. Not many do better than that. His block percentage is the best in the NBA. His steal percentage is up there. He's the defensive player of the year. That's what he's going to be as long as he stays healthy. he has developed his game in so many ways, and he has come so far from that draft night back in 2018. And yet, much like his teammate, Ja Morant, there are areas where Jaren Jackson Jr. can improve. Jaren, even though he's scoring better than he ever has, 120.7 points per shot attempt, that puts him in the 44th percentile among NBA bigs, below the middle of the road. And his assist percentage is at a worst of his career, 4.5%. He is sinking into Dylan Brooks territory earlier in Dylan's career, and it's still true to an extent. Whenever Jaren drives to the basket, off the dribble, has his back to the basket, he more often than not can have his way and get to his spot because of his physical talent, his physical ability, the way that he utilizes his frame and his body. But teams are learning and understanding that Jaren Jackson Jr. ain't going to pass the ball. He's not going to dish out to the open shooter like a Ja Morant would or a Tyus Jones. It's not coming. Almost certainly not coming. And because of that, it makes Jaren predictable. So that would be an area of growth for Jaren, is finding ways to better improve his assist numbers. I don't need him to be Tyus Jones or Ja Morant. I don't need him to even be a secondary facilitator of offense. I need for him to understand that because of his physicality, because of his ability to get to the basket, he is going to be in a position where they are going to start collapsing on him too. Maybe not as aggressively as they would Ja Morant, but they're going to start trying to get to the rim and cut him off and not let him have that lane to the bucket. He has to make one pass. He has to get one out. Luke Kennard in the corner. John Conchar in the corner. Hopefully Luke Kennard before John Conchar. But he has to be able to have his eyes up and make that decision quickly. It's just one decision. He doesn't have to initiate offense. Doesn't need to be the lead pick and roll creator. That doesn't have to happen that way. But when he has the mismatches that he so often has, because he's 6'11", 242 pounds, he needs to utilize the understanding and weaponize it that defense is going to make him a priority. Find the open guy. One pass, one kick out. That's all he needs. And his game will blossom even more than it already has. He's having a solid scoring season. He can be even better. He could be even more of an offensive weapon. And again, the defensive numbers are just remarkable. 5.9% block percentage according to Cleaning the Glass. That is the best in the NBA. Nobody is better than that. He is the top of the top. And that is really cool to see. And it's really cool that the coaches of the NBA acknowledge that greatness. Ja Morant's an easy all-star pick. If they hadn't picked Ja Morant, they would have been questions. If the positions weren't so strict in all-star voting with 3 frontcourt players and 2 backcourt players, you could easily argue that Ja Morant probably would have made it ahead of one of the 3 frontcourt players like Zion Williamson for the all-star game. But Ja was chosen as a reserve. Again, that's an easy choice. Jaren Jackson Jr. wasn't an easy choice. There's a lot of backlash for that. A lot of people that didn't agree with that decision because they don't understand what Jaren Jackson Jr. brings to the table. But who would get that better than opposing coaches? Who would understand better than guys that have to go against Jaren Jackson Jr. and game plan for him and see the impact that he has? 10% worse shooting at the rim when Jaren's on the floor. It's not an accident. And the Memphis Grizzlies as a whole, again, per Cleaning the Glass, are 12.6 points better in terms of efficiency differential when Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the floor. That is in the 97th percentile in the entire NBA. It's amazing. Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of the most impactful players in terms of winning in the entire NBA. Credit to him. Credit to the way that he explodes as a player, as a talent, the physicality he brings. He is understanding how to use his size and make it a problem for opposing teams. It's fantastic to see play out. And it's wonderful to see that potential come to life. Jaren Jackson Jr. is extremely significant in terms of winning basketball. Without him, The Grizzlies aren't who they are. Jaren Jackson Jr., you put his numbers among the likes of LeBron James. The Memphis Grizzlies are 12.7% or 12.7 points, better in terms of efficiency differential with Jaren Jackson Jr. on the floor. The Lakers are 12.6 points better. The impact that LeBron James is having on the Los Angeles Lakers is comparable to the impact that Jaren Jackson Jr. is having on the Memphis Grizzlies. Put that in perspective. Guys like Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard, they deserve credit. But among players that have played 1,000 minutes at least, Nikola Jokic, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, three Denver players, Aaron Gordon. That starting lineup's really good in Denver, if you haven't told. Kawhi Leonard, Jaren Jackson Jr. He deserves to be an All-Star. He deserves the honor, and I'm really excited to watch him play in his first All-Star game on Sunday. We're going to make some All-Star weekend predictions coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, my favorite treat. I love talking about the delicious and nutritious Built Bar. You don't want all the fat and calories, but you want something sweet to eat, you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. I don't know about you. I'm training for a 10K. I'm trying to lighten the old belly, so to speak. I got to have a snack, though, and I choose to snack with Built Bar. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. 100% real chocolate is what covers these bars. That's right, real chocolate. They come in flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. That's my personal favorite. I don't know how they do it, but only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein in these delicious bars. And you don't have to wait around for Built.com anymore to have your bars sent to you. You can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club, pick up a box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs at Walmart. Maybe you can get a brownie batter or churro bar box, a 13-bar box at Sam's Club. Built.com is still there, and you can certainly peruse and look at all the delicious items, but you can also head out to your local Walmart or Sam's Club today and pick up some Built Bars. They're delicious, they're nutritious, make them a part of your snacking experience. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, I'm going to make some All-Star game predictions, All-Star weekend predictions. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax. We are here finishing up another wonderful episode this week. Still flying solo. Again, I want to give a shout out to DeMichael Cole, my co-host. He will be joining us again, hopefully in the next several episodes, but he can take his time. Our condolences and thoughts to his family after the death of his big brother. Tough times there, but, DeMichael, we're thinking of you, and we look forward to having you back when you're ready. You talked so highly about your brother and the way that he viewed your work over the Commercial Appeal and covering the Grizzlies in general. So I look forward to having you back, buddy. Wish you well. All-Star Saturday night. I talked yesterday. It's kind of mid, right? The kids say mid now. Can I say mid? Is it instantly less cool if I say mid? I'm sorry if I ruined mid, but I like saying mid. How many times can I say mid in a minute? Mid. I'm just kidding. I'm not a huge All-Star Saturday night guy. I don't know how much I'm going to watch, but I do think that thanks to our new gambling partner, our new sports betting partner, FanDuel, I am very interested in perhaps placing a wager or two. And there's a couple of wagers that I want to discuss with you as part of our overall preview. And then I'll talk about how I think Ja and Jaren will do in the game. The first contest I want to talk about is the three-point contest, because there's a very clear dunk contest winner. It's Mac McClung. Virginia, stand up. You know what I'm saying? Gate City, Virginia, stand up. It's Mac McClung's time. So Mac McClung's the obvious pick there, for no other reason other than it's Mac McClung and he's from Virginia. That is literally my logic. Three-point contest, though, it's a little bit more interesting. All right. Here are some of the odds listed from our good friends at FanDuel, our betting partner here, our sports betting partner. Buddy Hield at plus 420, the favorite to win as of this recording. Damian Lillard at plus 470, so not too far behind. Jason Tatum at plus 550, same thing with Kevin Huerter. Lauri Markkanen, excuse me, of the Utah Jazz, the home of the 2023 All-Star Game. Utah Jazz. They are there in Salt Lake City. Lauri Markkanen participating in this event. I like those odds for Lauri. He's having a pretty solid season from three. not elite. He's not among the top 10 shooters in the league. But what Markkanen is doing is putting up impressive scoring numbers in general. And he's shooting better than his career average at 41.2%. He's in his home gym. He's going to have the crowd on his side. I'm going Markkanen. Markkanen's going to be my pick there. So you're getting some betting advice from your buddy Joe here on Locked On Grizzlies. Lauri Markkanen at plus 650. I like that. Again, the hometown guy there in Utah. He's going to have the fan support. It's his home court. He's used to shooting there. I think it's going to be Markkanen. That's my pick. For the All-Star Game MVP, the actual game itself, I'm listing off again from FanDuel the odds. Giannis is the favorite for that at plus 600, and that makes total sense because Giannis doesn't really know that it's an exhibition, or at least he doesn't act like it's an exhibition game. He goes hard throughout the game, not just the fourth quarter. So Giannis is the pick is logical. LeBron James plus 700, another logical choice because of LeBron. And, if he has a good game, he'll be a natural selection because of the stage of the career he's at. Damian Lillard is also plus 700, which kind of surprises me. Maybe they think Dame time is going to make it a priority to make an appearance. His team's not very good, but he's having a career year. Joel Embiid and Luka Doncic at plus 900 and Jason Tatum at plus 1,000. Ja Morant's nowhere on that list, and that's mildly surprising. That's mildly surprising because Ja Morant's an all-star starter, ladies and gentlemen, and he's going to be given plenty of opportunity to go out there and score the basketball. I'm not saying he's going to play a ton of minutes, but he's definitely going to play early ones. And even if he doesn't get late game minutes, sometimes coaches go and actually try to coach defensively. Sometimes coaches will play up matchups, that sort of thing. But if Ja's got a hot hand, which is possible, I could see him making a run at that all-star trophy. Giannis is the logical pick because of how physically dominant he is and how he takes the All-Star game seriously every year. But don't sleep on our boy Ja Morant. I think that he might have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He wasn't selected as a starter this year. Steph Curry, Luka Doncic were selected in front of him in terms of fan vote, media vote, player vote. Ja was a straight 3 across. Luka and Steph were viewed as better. So maybe Morant comes out and decides he's going to make a point to compete and score and show what he's capable of on this national stage on Sunday night. From there, no odds for Jaren Jackson Jr., and that's probably smart. Jaren's probably not going to get a ton of run. He's going to play, and that's going to be fun to watch. I am intrigued because they're doing the All-Star draft this year literally before the game. It's like a big fancy game of pickup basketball, which I personally love. I think it's brilliant. I love that they're organizing it this way. And they're going to pick teams, and then they're going to play. If Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant are on the same team, they're going to do some pick and roll, pick and pop. They're going to play together. Maybe Jaren throws an alley-oop for Ja. The defense is pretty suspect in the All-Star game until the fourth quarter anyway. So I think there's likelihood there that Jaren and Ja will be given opportunities to shine since they're the first pair of Grizzlies teammates in Memphis franchise history. However, I see them play together all the time. I don't know about you. I want to see Jaren and Ja play against each other. I think that is a fascinating possibility. Until De'Aaron Fox was named as an injury replacement, there weren't any other partners in the Western Conference. And again, the two captains can pick whoever they want, and teams will change. But there weren't a ton of opportunities for teammates to go against one another. Ja and Jaren from the West were it initially. So what if Ja Morant is on one side and Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the other? Ja has said he's going to try to dunk on Jaren. And while I would rather them not do that because they're two very important players to the Memphis Grizzlies playoff hopes, and we'll talk more about that next week, previewing the season to come, the sprint to the finish. But on Sunday night, if they're not teammates, Ja Morant might look for an opportunity to put one on the head of the likely, in my opinion, defensive player of the year. Now, if Jaren blocks it, that's bragging rights forever, man. At least as long as they're teammates, and we know that'll be for the next few years at least. So that's what I'm most interested in. Obviously, Giannis playing and being the player that he is, and watching Jokic in the All-Star game is always a treat because his game is so kind of counter to what a lot of these other guys do. And I don't mean that as an insult. Jokic is, probably going to win his third in a row MVP award. He's that good. but it's just a different style of play. Him and Embiid, maybe they're on the same team, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty going into this game, but the one thing that I'm certain of is it's going to be a lot of fun to watch Ja and Jaren represent the city of Memphis and the Memphis Grizzlies organization as the first time ever two Memphis Grizzlies representatives in the All-Star game. How far this franchise has come to go from being excited for just having an All-Star player to having an All-Star starter, how big of a deal that was with Marc Gasol. Now you've got an All-Star starter and an All-Star reserve. You've got them both, and they're both under the age of 24. The future's bright. Lots of reasons to be optimistic if you are a fan of the Memphis Grizzlies. Thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen today. Now make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. The next time we will be together will be on Monday. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. It'll be a President's Day edition of Locked On Grizzlies. We will break down everything that happened over All-Star Weekend. We haven't talked about Kenneth Lofton Jr. in the Rising Stars game. We'll get a breakdown of his game and how he did in the Rising Stars contest representing the G League Memphis Hustle. We'll talk about All-Star Saturday night. Was it actually mid? I found another opportunity to say mid. Go me. How did it go? How was the dunk contest? Did my predictions come true? And then, of course, we'll look at Jaren and Ja, how they did in the All-Star game. We'll break down all those fun things and start looking ahead a little bit to the sprint for the Grizzlies to try to hold on to the 2 seed, get closer to Denver for the 1 in the West, getting ready for the playoffs in the next few months. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch and cover. I'm excited that you'll be with me on the journey. Thank you so much for listening wherever you get your podcasts to Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you for checking us out on YouTube. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. It's all good. Thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times. We appreciate you making us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies experience. Until the next time, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Be good. I'm Joe Mullinax. This is Locked On Grizzlies. Continue to lock in.